Well, thanks to all four of you for some very, very intriguing testimony. Let's see, Mr. Reed mentioned annual average salary of $86,000, nearly double the national average in this field of app technology. And apparently there's such a great demand that we're nowhere near filling those slots. So perhaps we need to talk about apprenticeships. And while you're thinking about that, Mr. Reed, let me ask Mr. Forrester along those lines. What is it about your academies that frees you from government red tape and allows you to respond more quickly to the needs of industry? And what do you think about those statistics of $86,000 salaries and 440,000 additional jobs? Seems like he's in the ballpark there.
Oh yes, sir. I have every confidence that those numbers are real. In our state, our average starting salaries are in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, but they quickly move up into the mid-80s to $100,000 range for more experienced developers. What is the key, though? And the thing that eliminates this bureaucratic issue, if you will, we must start with private industry or industry, because we do have a great partner that's a public entity as well, but we must start with the employer. They must be engaged with us. They must set the curriculum. We don't want to be teaching what the technologies were 10 years ago or even 5 or even 2 years ago. This industry reinvents itself in terms of programming technologies, development technologies continuously. So only through a very tight relationship with industry are we able to quickly respond to those needs. So they help us set the curriculum. They provide guest instructors. We go out and visit them on site. Our students get to see what it's like to be in the workplace. Those are the kind of things that make us different. Those are our distinguishing characteristics. It starts with that.
Mr. Reed, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I want to echo everything he pretty much said, but I think there's an important thing for the state of Mississippi that's worthwhile noting. Right now, you have 27.8% of the population without broadband, but more importantly, 50.2% of the population in rural areas.
Where do you get those statistics?
This is based off of a study we did with the FCC's information as well as others within the state. And here's why that concerns me. Right now, he's training great Mississippians to be great coders. We recently had over 50 CEOs in town, and we did a poll of the room, and I asked, how many of you employ people who don't work at your home location or even in your state? I had 100% of my 50 CEOs said they're willing to work with people and do right now hire people who aren't in their state. And the problem we have with a state like Mississippi, when he trains a great coder, if they go home and they don't have broadband, then how are my people going to hire him? And so that's why we look at solutions like TV white spaces and 5G rollout, because frankly, I'll hire your people if they can do the job and he's trained them well. They've just got to have broadband.
Where's TV white space working, sir?
There are several pilot projects around the country right now that you're seeing it in place, and what you're seeing right now is its primary uses in rural. As you know, and this committee knows better than anyone, the difficulty with last mile, if you've got a rural population that's 9 miles from the nearest trunk, it's incredibly expensive to pull a line down for 5 or 6 families. But if we can use TV white spaces, those are the gaps in between, to try to get broadband connectivity to rural populations, then we can change their future in terms of their ability to live where they're from and still compete in the job market in a global environment.
Which companies are actually delivering, or don't name the names of the companies, but what type of entity actually takes this TV white space and actually makes an agreement with the household and gets it there.
That's exactly right. So the TV white spaces is being pioneered by a company based out of Senator Cantwell's home state.
Surprising.
They have been on the front edge of this, and what they've been doing is partnering with local ISPs and WISPs and others in order for them to
So the
provide
local
backbone.
ISP is a part of this.
That's exactly right. The TV white spaces is essentially like your Wi-Fi, but how do we get Wi-Fi to go a lot further than we can on the current 2.4 gigahertz?
Okay.
We need better spectrum, which I know you.
Now back to the statistic you gave.
Yep.
About Mississippi. I assume you have this similar statistics about all of the other states represented around
Why,
this
yes,
dais.
Senator, for every member of your committee.
Is that in a form that you could enter into the record at this
Absolutely,
point?
Senator.
Okay, well then, without objection, that will be entered into the record at this point. You know we're having a debate, Mr. Reed, with the FCC about the reliability of their maps on this very topic. Are you telling me you've done a study, your group has done a study that is different and uses different information?
We've done some combinations of studies, but you point out to one of the major problems. At the root of almost all of these trees is still the FCC's data, and we would love to have more accurate data. In fact, we had meetings with all the commissioners on the 8th floor from both parties to talk about getting us better data so that we can make a better analysis of exactly the question you're raising. So right now, we find almost everyone's source of data. If you dig deep enough, it all goes back to the FCC.
Pardon me, my fellow subcommittee members. How do we get better data, Mr. Reed? Do you have suggestions for us? Dr. O?
I can pipe in.
Do the
about
committee members
Yeah,
mind
so
us,
we
please?
use FCC data as well, and what we find is it's often delayed by 2 or 3 years, 2014, 2016 data. I'm not part of that conversation about getting better data, but I'd be interested to know how expensive it is to update those data sets faster, and whether money allocated for other things can be put towards maps.
Well-
There are a lot of other things that the FCC is spending on, and that could just prioritizing maps could be one way.
Well,
to do that.
I'll simply add, going back to Mr. Reed, and then I've way over taken my time, but nobody's really happy with these maps, and you
That is correct.
seem to suggest that there is a better set of data.
There are, but given our time constraints right now, I'm happy to sit down with your committee staff and talk about the ways that some of our data scientists, as well as folks that you know, Dr. O, on ways that we can pull the data from existing sources, as well as, frankly, the fact that most Americans are carrying a smartphone in their pocket. How do we use and pull the information of access on the wireless side right from the phones themselves?
Senator Schatz.